So here's our virtual machine ready to become a web server. To make it as a web server, you need to install the web server component, which we call it as IIS on the Windows machine. If it was Linux, we would have installed probably a Tomcat or Apache on the machine to make it a web server. But this is a Windows machine. So to make it as a web server, you gotta click on this little box, which is called as a server manager. And it launches that, and then I need to add certain roles to it, right? And those roles are called as Active Directory roles if you want to make it a domain controller. If you want to make it a DNS server, you will install a DNS role. Want to make it a DHCP server, you will install a DHCP role. But in this case, I want to make it as a web server so that I can host my web application on top of it. So I have to make it as a web server. So I'll click on this, and then as always, you get this wizard. So I'm going to click next. If you're looking at this screen for the first time, I would suggest you to read these little statements here. They're quite informative. Click next. Installation type, do you want it to be a role-based or feature-based? Remote desktop server installation. Now I want to make this web server a virtual machine, so I'll go for the first one and not a remote desktop one. Click next. Server selection, yes, that's the server which is going to be a web server. Click next. This is the set of roles that I was talking about. Now I want to make it a web server, so I'll scroll down till the point I see web server IIS. I'll just put a checkbox there, and this pop-up that you get is this set of dependencies which are required for this server to become a web server. Add features, and then click next. Click next again. This is just a set of dependencies, and like I said earlier, if you're doing this for the first time, spend some time reading these things, what exactly it is doing, right? Click next, next again, and finally click on install. Give it some time for this installation to finish, and then it's ready to become a web server. So looks like this machine has become a web server now, because now it says installation succeeded on my server. I click on close, and also close this server manager screen and launch the Internet Explorer browser to verify if it has really become a web server. Just to verify if I can access the website internally within the machine, so it will be a local access. Once that is successful, we can then check if it is accessible from the internet through your mobile phone or any other devices. So I'll just do http://localhost, right? Great. There you go. So you get the default page, which is great. So that means the IIS services are running. The IIS engine is responding to the web request. That's great. I will go ahead and minimize the RDP and see if I can access it from the internet. So go back to my laptop here, launch the browser, and then just type http:// well, localhost will not work. I need to know the public IP address of this machine, which is this. So I'm trying to connect to that machine on the public IP on port number 80, right? HTTP is port number 80. Now it's not going to work. It will just try and try and try forever, but it will not work. Why? Remember that on the security groups, we opened port number 3389 to access RDP. And that's how we could access RDP, but we never opened port number 80, and that's why it's struggling to connect. In the next video, let's go ahead and learn how we can open the security groups on the virtual machine.